This is where I always get hung up, or like, okay, here we're going. We're going live now. Well, here we are. A snowy, cold afternoon up here in the Northeast, but nonetheless, we're ready to go. As ready as we're going to be, that's for sure. Today's episode of In the Huddle with Irving Fryar brought to you by Mark Cruz and family. Over the years, Mark has supported Patriots alumni with mentoring, and along with his family has participated in all of our events and programs. Patriots alumni and its impact in the community does not exist without Mark Cruz. Thank you, Mark Cruz and family. And Mayo Designs. Mayo Designs is a digital marketing team for business that believe in making the world a better place. As a partner, Carrie Mayo and her design team has certainly made Patriots alumni more successful in delivering its mission to the youth of New England. Let's welcome on Irving Fryar. Boy, what a pleasure it is to have you, my friend. It's been way too long since you and I have connected. It's good to see your lovely face. And you know, with all the teams that you had to play with, but your start was with the Patriots. So pleased to see that jacket hanging up behind you. Irving
Yeah, I figured I better go throwback, Pete, and do something that the people would be familiar with. At least those who were watching when we were playing, because they're not familiar with that
Exactly.
Patriot today in the 21st century.
Exactly. Going old school isn't a bad deal, especially for what we're doing here with Patriots. Irv, this is this in the huddle that we've been doing. I think this is our 12th episode. We started with our teammates from the 70s, guys that were drafted and played in the 70s. A lot of those guys, you know, and we're part of still on the team, obviously, when you were here. But it's been a way of overcoming this whole pandemic and what it's done to Patriots alumni and all of our outreaches. It's we're self-funded, and we take a football program out into the communities of New England each and every year. Well, of course, with the pandemic, we weren't able to do that, and much of our activities in raising funds kind of went by the wayside. So we've come up with this idea in the huddle. So one, fans can reconnect with some of their favorite players. Number two, I can pick up the phone and call all my pals like I did with you, and shame on me for losing the connection over the amount of years. But all in all, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor what we're doing with this in the huddle. So thanks for joining us.
Well, I appreciate it. And, you know, Pete, you called or you emailed. I think you emailed first and then you called, or I called you. But I mean, it's like, yeah, a lot of time has transpired or gone by since we talked last, but it's like we never missed a beat. We just pick up right where we left off. So I appreciate the opportunity to come on and reconnect and share our stories.
Well, we've got plenty of stories to tell, and you know, some of them we might not tell.
Yeah, I was going to say,
some of them we might just keep between us. You know. Well, let's start out. I know you grew up in New Jersey, in the throes of New Jersey, and yet you matriculated to the University of Nebraska as a Cornhusker back in the old Big Eight when it was really true testament, and I wish that I could say that CU and Nebraska were whether we were opponents. I don't know that we necessarily. It wasn't a lot. It was a one-sided deal for a number of years. But anyway, we were always right there. But how did you get from New Jersey to Nebraska?
Well, that's a very interesting story. First of all, I really did not want to go to college. When I finished with high school, I always got decent grades. So that wasn't an issue, but I was really fed up with school. I just didn't want to do school anymore. But fortunately, was getting a lot of scholarship offers. And a friend of mine that I grew up with, whose family was, our families were close, Mike Rozier. I grew up with him, played against him. He lived in Camden and played for Woodrow Wilson. I lived in Mount Holly and played for Rancocas Valley Regional High School. And we played against each other, but we were friends. And he was being recruited by the same schools I was being recruited by. So long story short, my mother demanded, and that's what we did. We did what our parents back then. Kids did what their parents said to do. So my mother said she demanded that I go to school, um, and so I got a little upset with her, and I decided that wherever Mike was going to go, that's where I was going to go. So Mike narrowed it down to either Pittsburgh or Nebraska. But Mike had to go, unfortunately, to a JUCO first because of his grades. So the first year he had to go to a JUCO. So he picked the school that had, or he felt that had the better JUCO program, which was Nebraska. He ended up going to Coffeyville, in Coffeyville, Kansas, going to that school first, our freshman year, while I went to Nebraska, and we met up our sophomore year. So really, it wasn't my decision. It was really Mike's decision, and I was just kind of following along because I really didn't want to go to school. But things
Well,
worked out for the good.
let's add Mother Fryer to this whole thing too. I mean, she's the one that really got you pushed into the whole deal. But you had a terrific career as a Cornhusker, and what you guys did when you were there at Nebraska, and all of the traditions and stuff that went along with doing it. You know what I really miss? I really miss that Friday after Thanksgiving, Oklahoma, Nebraska football.
Yeah.
There forever and ever, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
That was always the Big Eight championship, so to speak. Yeah, it was always the Big Eight championship. Now, for whatever reason, the University of Nebraska can't seem to get it together. I don't know if the perception of the school is that it's still the kind of football program it used to be, where we're running the ball and we're physical, and it's not a prolific type offense where they're passing the ball. But that's what football is now, and Nebraska just doesn't seem to be able to recruit the athletes. In my opinion, they don't seem to be able to recruit the athletes to be able to keep up with all of these passing games. In other words, defensive backs that can cover, wide receivers that can fly and run these real good routes, and quarterbacks that can stand in the pocket and throw the ball to play after play after play. We just don't seem to be able to recruit those kind of athletes, I believe, because the perception of Nebraska is still what it used to be, that we're a running team. We run the ball first, and we're not, we're just going to pound it down your throat. We're not going to be the kind of prolific type of offense that you need, or that most teams put on the field these days.
Well, I think they got the right guy as the head coach, and you got to help me with his name, but he left Central Florida, which he did an absolutely awesome job. And he's at Central Florida, and then, he packs up and heads to Nebraska. And he left Florida the right way. He didn't leave the lurch and the whole bit. He got up, took his staff with him. Help me out with his name.
It's Frost, isn't it? It's Frost.
Yeah,
it's Frost. Yeah.
Anyway, he did a great job with it, and he's a Nebraska grad. So he's got a lot invested in the whole thing, and I really think that if they stay with him, that he'll get that whole program turned around. I honestly believe that.
Well, I believe so too. But again, I believe the perception when it comes to a lot of high school athletes, the perception of the University of Nebraska is not the same perception as, say, a University of Miami or Clemson, where they know, they're going to throw the ball. It's going to be wide open on defense, on offense. And so they struggle, I think, with getting the kind of athletes they need to fit into that kind of program so they can keep up with these other schools. I mean, those other schools are I'm watching Nebraska earlier this season, and man, they're getting beat by 30 and 40 points. We're used to beating everybody by 30 and 40 points.
Right. Face it, Lincoln, Nebraska is not exactly a destination place either. you gotta want to play football at Nebraska to go to Lincoln, Nebraska. Anyway, not like Boulder, Colorado, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's the University of Nebraska. Lincoln is Nebraska's pro team. It is the focus of the state. I mean, it's the most important athletic team in the state. So everybody supports it.
Yeah, no question. They've had, with, like I say, with all the best and traditions that they've had, I see Nebraska coming back. It's just weird to see them in the
basement,
in the Big Ten, and in the basement of the Big Ten.
Yeah, in the basement of the Big Ten. Yeah.
So that's a weird deal. You had a career there. In fact, such a great and prolific career that the Patriots, when the 1984 draft came around, they had the very first pick in the draft, and guess who they picked?
Yeah, it was me. I, I think they were trying to set me up to fail.
No, I
No.
don't think so. I think, you take a look at, and okay, so the New England Patriots were always known to run the football. I mean, we set
Right.
records in 76, we've set
Right.
records in 78. We could run the football and it didn't matter. We had John Hanna in the offensive line,
Yeah.
and over the years we went from the John Hanna, Leon Gray to the Brian Holloway and John Hanna and Ron Wooten and Bob
And
Kreider
Pete Brock was in there too. Yeah, Pete Brock was in
yeah,
there. Yeah.
they I got a little heavy. They carried me through most of the year, uh, but we could run the football. But we had guys like, I mean, take a look at it. It was Stanley Morgan.
Right.
Stanley Morgan, I think, was the Tyreek Hill of football back then. I mean, but we didn't use him in that sense. We could
No, because
pound
right.
ball, we'd run a little play action, and Stanley would sneak a dig route in behind somebody and touchdown Patriots. He's standing in the end zone with it. But we could throw the football. Steve Grogan was really good at it, but we used the pass to set up. We used the run up the pass, and we
Right.
tried to stay balanced. So having you on the team, so drafting you wasn't a bad deal. We just, you take a look at Stanley Morgan was on that football team. And, before you got there, Harold Jackson then became your coach. I think he helped coach you.
Yes, he did. We called him 2-9.
Harold and Stanley, 1,000-yard tandem wide receivers in 1979.
Right.
So I think the drafting of Irving Fryar was to say, let's see if we can strike a little bit of balance to this run game and really threaten some people.
Mm-hmm. But what did not work out, I guess, in that plan, and I can agree with that plan. Although we did run the ball to set up the pass back then, and it's different now, that. And when receivers got 1,000 yards like Stanley and Harold Jackson did, it was because they were averaging 17, 18, 20 yards a catch. Now when receivers,
how about 20 yards a catch?
Yeah, so receivers now they're averaging 5 yards a catch, 6 yards a catch, and they're catching 100 balls for 1,000 yards as opposed to 50 balls for 1,000 yards. So there was a difference. Meaning, yes, we did not throw the ball that much. We still threw the ball, but we didn't throw it that much. But the problem where we fell short was with our quarterback. As you can remember, for whatever reason, and this is not a slight on him, it's just the way it happened. Tony Eason just didn't pan out to be what we projected him to be, and that kind of threw us off. And over the years, my 9 years there, I mean, I played with many different quarterbacks. When if the picture were painted perfectly, it would have been I would have played with two quarterbacks: Steve Grogan, and Tony Eason. But I had Tommy Hodson, I had Doug Flutie, I mean, one guy after the other, because things just didn't pan out with Tony. And remember, in that class, I believe it was the year before I came, or maybe 2 years before I came, that same class with all the other quarterbacks, Dan Marino and Jim Kelly, and Tony was drafted before all of them to New England.
Elway.
Elway, because he was projected to be the better one out of all of them. So had he panned out, or had things panned out better for him, I think our passing game would have been a whole lot different and more productive in terms of numbers.
I agree. And there's one thing that I'll never understand is why they wanted to make the Steve Grogan switch. It wasn't, Steve was a tough guy. He'd stand in that pocket and deliver the football when necessary. I don't know why they always were trying to force a switch. There was a lot of attempts to draft quarterbacks when Steve was around, and nothing really worked out. So, if they'd have wanted to stay consistent and have him, okay, he's our play caller, he's the guy to make it happen, I think it would have worked out different too.
Right. Well, then, I mean, even when I came on the team, when I got drafted and I was placed on the team, Ron Meyer was the head coach at that time.
Yeah.
Halfway through, or ways into my rookie year, is when Raymond Berry took over.
Right.
But when I got to the team, Ron Myers, he put me at the same position rather than putting me on the other side of the field from Stanley. He put me in the same position as Stanley and he had Stanley and I competing against one another. I guess because there was some kind of art between Stanley and Ron, or Ron had an issue with Stanley. I'm not sure exactly what it was. And almost my whole rookie year, Stanley didn't speak to me because Stanley was mad at me because I was threatening. They were trying to get me to threaten his position. And then when Raymond came in, that's when Raymond took me and put me on the other side. And then Stanley and I were working together rather than trying to work against each other. So there was a couple of things going on there that kind of hindered our ability to just kind of open up our passing game.
Well, I'll tell you what, when Raymond did that and put you guys on the field at the same time, made a huge difference in our offense. And I'm talking about just the passing game. I couldn't wait. Here's my story about it. Here's one of my stories about Irving Fryar. I could not wait to get to the film on Monday after a Sunday game, so that I watch the wide angle and watch Irving Fryar block downfield. It was a thing of beauty. It was unbelievable the way that you go after. The reason we were successful in running the football is because once our backs, Tony Collins and Craig James, and you name the back that had the football, once they broke that linebacker level, there was a lot of yards downfield because Irving was down downfield blocking. What you did downfield blocking was unbelievable.
Well, what you remember, that's what I was trained to do at Nebraska. I mean, we ran the ball. I averaged in Nebraska. I was a wingback in Nebraska. So I came from college from a 3-point stance. When we split out at Nebraska, split out wide, I wasn't standing up in a 2-point stance. I was in a 3-point stance, split out. And I was a wingback. So I did a lot of blocking. I averaged touching the ball 4 times a game at Nebraska in my career. So I wasn't necessarily a ball carrier. I did score a lot because, having a guy like Mike Rozier, Heisman Trophy winner, as a running back, they paid a lot of attention to the run. They had to. So I was able to get open quite a bit because play action always pretty much worked. But we just trained. I trained to do it. And that's what I came in doing. I came in as a blocker and almost a running back as opposed to a wide receiver. I was more of a running back or a blocker than I was a wide receiver when I got to New England, and really had to learn and use my God-given ability my first couple of years to learn how to be a receiver, standing up and running routes and all of that kind of stuff. But I love that. I love that. I did that all my career.
Those crackback blocks.
Yeah, I wouldn't even get concerned about catching balls. I just wanted to hit somebody. That's just, seriously, that's Hines Ward was not the original rough, tough receiver. That was going on before Hines Ward ever showed up.
No question. People just started paying attention, I guess, then. But
Right.
But I tell you what, I couldn't wait to get in that film room Monday after a game. Just watch how you set those. That's back when crackbacks were still legal. And you'd take an outside linebacker, and it looked like he got dropped to a manhole cover. It was unbelievable. Well, it was no wonder we were able to run the football so well because of those downfield. Stanley was pretty good. Stanley wasn't going to go light up somebody. He could shield because he was a running back at Tennessee before he became a prolific wide receiver. So he knew that whole style. Between the two of you getting downfield was a pretty cool deal.
Well, I believed in being the hammer and not the nail. And if you initiate, it doesn't matter what size the guy is. Even when I caught the ball, if I could get my feet on the ground and initiate the contact rather than absorb the contact, you're less likely, you're going to last a lot longer. Right. And I would try to, particularly in those crackbacks, the linebacker would see me coming, but he would see me it would be too late for him to react. Before he could gather himself and start to initiate the contact, I would have already made contact with him and driven through him. So regardless of if he had 20 pounds on me or 40 pounds, it didn't matter. If I got in the right position and initiated contact and got there before he could actually adjust, it didn't matter if he saw me or not. So, and I learned that in college, because that's all I did in college was crackback. I got ringing in my ears now because of all that crackback.
Well, I'm telling you, it was. I'm glad you brought it from Nebraska because it really helped us. Talk about Talk about the impact Raymond Berry had on you in your career.
Um, I really respected Raymond. Raymond was very similar to me as Tom Osborne was. Um, Mild mannered, Christian man, someone who was that I really could respect. I really lacked uh, a male role model in my life growing up. And when I came across one, unknowingly, I was drawn to that. And Raymond speaks louder now in my life than he did when I was actually with him. You know, there's an old saying that says the teacher will show up when the student's ready. And you know, while I was actually in the presence of Raymond, I was more concerned about, you know, doing what I needed to do on the field and being the best football player that I could be. And I absorbed all the information I could get from him with regards to being a wide receiver. But there were some times in my interactions with him that we had conversations about life. But because I was so sporadic and so crazy, I really needed to sit down and talk to somebody back then, but I didn't. But because I was so crazy and so young and so ambitious and just all over the place, what he said to me with regards in terms of the information I needed to use for life really kind of went over my head at the time. But now things that he said really speak volume in my life. I can remember a conversation I had with him. It was crazy. We actually were arguing. I was in his office, sitting down in front of his desk. You know, he had that cot in his office. He would sleep in his office sometimes. And I was telling him, you know what? This is how I feel. You know, this is how I feel. And I was expressing how I feel. And he said, Irving, listen, understand something. Nobody cares about how you feel. And I stopped and I was like, wow, really? Nobody cared. And that was a lesson for me. Even today, that's true. Nobody really cares about how you feel. Not to take that in as a negative way, but we really have, the world is cynical. People are cynical. Yeah. People are self-centered. And
that's what I was going to say, that they're so concerned about their own feelings that they don't bother to find out about how other people feel.
Yeah. So that was one of the lessons, and that helps you. You know, that helps to keep you from placing expectations on people and being disappointed and viewing people or putting them at a level where they don't necessarily need to be in terms of how you view them. Not saying that you discount people and you treat people bad. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is it's a self-preservation way of thinking, a self-protection way of thinking. So now I'm not putting all these expectations on people. I'm not expecting them to do this or that. I'm not counting on them to do this or that. I'm living my life, helping people along the way, but not having to deal with the disappointments that we set ourselves up with.
Yeah, no, I get it. I had a few of those episodes with Raymond Berry as well, as you can imagine. But when he came in, when he season, the thing that I appreciated out of him, I remember Raymond was also a coach, a wide receiver coach in 1980 with Ron Air, his staff. So we had all we had known Raymond as a wide receiver coach in that staff, and then when he was named head coach, he came in. He spent the last half of that season not so much setting up X's and O's and trying to diagram, but getting to know each and every player on the team personally. Yeah. And you know, he wanted to know the families. He wanted to know how you fit in. You know, your mom and dad, most things about you. And the one thing that he did was he knew everyone's. He started to know each one's name. And think how important it is. 53 guys on the team, or more than that. You figure the practice squad guys or guys that were. So there's 60 guys on the team. Some of them he knew from time before. A lot of guys he didn't. And in order for him to have an influence or to impact anybody, just to somebody by their name meant something. And he spent the rest of that season memorizing that. And if that's all he did, which it wasn't, that was really important as to how we use that as a springboard in that 85 season.
Right. And you know what? It created a family environment, so much so that you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, you know, I played for other teams after I left New England. Uh, but really, New England, my time in New England was like no other experience that I had, whether it was Miami or Philadelphia or Washington. The guys in New England were like family to me. And, you know, I still stay in contact with Ronnie Lepet and Tony Collins, Stanley I talk to every now and then, Roland James. I still stay in contact with some of these guys and Derwin Williams, because it was just a different experience than it was on these other teams. It wasn't as close knit as I went on in my career. Guys just kept to themselves. It wasn't a family. It was guys coming to work to get a job done, whether it was, you know, like going to work to building a building and going home. And we played the game and we went home, but we didn't interact with each other that much. And I think the game is kind of turned into that now for whatever reason. But back then, when we were together in New England, particularly those first 5 or 6 years that I was there was really stands out and was really profound to me. And I hold all of those guys and those experiences dearly in my heart. That's why I called you back, Pete. I mean, you're one of my favorite people. I mean, we don't stay in contact, but when I think of you, it's good thoughts. It's not bad thoughts. He's a good guy. He was a great teammate. I remember a story. You were center, right? You played center, right?
Right.
Yeah. You don't know this. Well, maybe you do know this. We were in training camp one day, and people don't know we used to have 6 weeks or 2-a-days. We were in training camp one day down in Springfield, and in the military, it was hot. In the middle of training camp, Steve Grogan comes up to me, and he takes his wristband and puts it up to my face. Now, you know where his wristband had been all day during training camp.
No, I got it. Got it. Had a little sweat on it, didn't it?
Oh, what? A little sweat. It had an odor to it, Pete. I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about.
I don't know if we need to go.
But that wristband was not in a good place. I was like, whoa. And Steve started laughing. I'll never forget that. That was crazy. That was 50 years ago almost.
No question. No, and you know, we'll go back to the Raymond thing as I'm on, because I want to get off of that subject for right now. You know, you got to center in the middle of 2-a-days. You got a little swass going out there, okay? But anyway, was Raymond didn't force us to have that, but he recognized that in order for us to take it to a different level, to take football to a different level, we had to care about each other.
Right.
And we had to, you know, I had to care about Irving Fryar. I cared about Irving Fryar.
Right.
So I wanted Irving to be as successful and as happy as I was. And I cared about you as a person, as a human being, as a teammate, before anything else. And I think that's Raymond instilled that in each and every one. I don't know how he did it. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, we all went out. Well, maybe we did, but you know, like on Monday after meetings or something, we all went down to the Red Fox and down at that little restaurant down there, and the rookies paid for it. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was just all. Maybe it was because he knew our names. Maybe it was all of those things combined into. And this is going to sound corny, each other. When we took the field, we cared about how each other was going to do.
Right. Well, I think it's exactly the same of what you're saying. You hit it right on the head. We cared about one another because Raymond it seemed as though he cared about us. That's the environment that he created. In his action, in his very own actions. So because we believe he cared about us, he's our leader. So we're a reflection of our leadership. We began to carry that same attitude. and that same concern for one another, because it was when he when it came from him, it was genuine. It wasn't something fake. We knew that he was sincere in what he was trying to do and asking questions and getting to know all of us. It was something that was genuine and from his heart, and we were just a reflection of that. It trickled down to us, and I believe that's still why we have some of the, why I carry some of you in my heart now, years later. Those teammates in New England, not my teammates in Miami, not my teammates in Philadelphia, not my teammates in Washington, but it's my teammates in New England.
Well, I remember a couple of episodes on the Brock family porch too. Irving would come over and sit down. Your nickname for me was Papa Smurf, and it was only because I think I was starting to get a little silver back then, and I was a bit older than you. I came in '76, so I was in my 8th or 9th year, your rookie year. But there was a few episodes on the Brock porch about just talking about stuff, just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you got very involved with my kids and my family, and even
Yep.
to the point where I don't know if you remember, but they had my kids had what do you call it,
You don't
talent
remember.
show at their
I was gonna
school.
say you don't remember.
No, a talent show at their school, and they wanted California Raisins, which was just to a Temptation song, and they wanted to do the dance moves and the whole bit. And
Yes,
my son John was like the locker room mascot. He was always up there helping George Luongo clean up uniforms and hanging stuff. And
right.
so he ended up asking you to teach him how to move like the California
How to do the dance?
So,
Yeah, I remember that.
and you and wife Jackie came over to the house and worked with those kids, and even to the point where you actually went to the talent show and you had a video camera and videotaped the whole thing. I mean, you were part of. My son John, one of his favorite memories was about his dad playing with the Patriots. He'll tell people Irving Fryar.
The California Raisins. Yeah, I remember that, Pete. Yeah, that was wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And you always wanted to come up to mine and my brother Stan's ranch in Oregon. So we still got to catch up and make that happen too.
Yeah, we're supposed to go hunting, weren't we?
Yeah.
What were we gonna hunt? Moose, or what were we gonna hunt?
Well, we could do elk or deer or whatever.
Elk. It was elk. Okay, yeah.
You come back up here to New England and we could go do some of that if you want.
All right. Well, I'm more than likely going to get to New England before I get to Oregon.
I would say more than likely that's true. So you're down in Jersey. You're back home, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm back home. When I finished in Washington, I came back home. Yeah, I came back. So I've been back here since 2000. Since 2000.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll tell the listeners and the guys that I've had on kind of like, what are you up to now? I mean, your football career, everybody could track. They could do a look up and Wikipedia you if you wanted to. They get all your stats but we're getting a sense of Irving Fryar is. What have you done? What have you done since your career has been over, and what are you doing now?
Wow, I've done a lot. I started out in my career, or after my career ended, when I retired, I started out doing broadcasting. I was working for CNNSI for a year, and then AOL came in and bought CNNSI and shut the show down. I was actually working with Trev Alberts and Bob Lorenz, and we were doing a live show on Sunday mornings. That was very nice. And I came back to Philadelphia and was doing some local sports analysis, sports casting with a local affiliate, ABC, Action News. But then I got the calling from God to pastor. And in 2003, I started a church and started pastoring a church. I've been doing that ever since. Some things have gone up, some things have gone down, things have changed. People may know I spent some time in prison not too long ago. During that time, Jackie divorced me. And about 4.5 years ago, when I got out of prison, Pete, I really had to start all over again. No house, no car, no money, no home, no clothes, no nothing. I really had to start all over again. And it was, I really didn't know what I was going to do. 50, 58 now. Then I was 53, almost 54, starting all over again. I'm like, wow, this is not good. But God is good. When I got out of prison, I maintained, the church maintained itself. The people stayed. I was really thinking while I was in prison that was not going to happen. And I was really trying to find a way while I was in prison not to pastor anymore, just because there were a lot of negative thoughts in my head. A lot of people had turned their back on me. Even the whole prison sentence thing was because somebody had betrayed me. I'll leave it at that. And it was a really, really low time in my life. But now here today, I came out of prison. I was pastoring my church. I actually started pastoring another church, and I was pastoring two churches at one time. And while I was pastoring that church, it happened to be, or associate pastor at the church, it happened to be my bishop's church that I was helping him with. He had a community development corporation, which he still has, and he was building houses and building senior housing facilities. And I was able to work hand in hand next to him for 3 years. And then I started my own community development corporation. And now, as of today, we're in the middle of a $12 million project where we're building a 64 unit senior housing facility. We're also in the middle of a project where we're building a modular home factory that's going to employ 300 people. So I got a couple of big, it's all day, every day too. It's unbelievable what is happening. Things have really, really, really turned around. I'm in a good place, but I'm still pastoring. The church is doing well. In this pandemic, it's been a challenge for us as pastors to be virtual. Some of us may not have had a online presence prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic forced us, if we wanted to keep our churches together and keep our churches going, it forced us to have an online presence. So we've kind of done a good job of trying to master as much as we can our online presence, going live on Facebook every Saturday. We have church on Saturday. We're not Seventh-day Adventists. We're not Sabbath day worshipers. We're Christians. We just prefer to do today. Why put off today what you can do for tomorrow, what you can do today? So we have church on Saturday rather than wait until Sunday. Why put it off? So we have our service. Yeah, we have our services on Saturday. We have Sunday on Saturday at 5:45 on our Facebook page. We're getting ready to open our doors back up in January. I mean, we've been at the church almost a year now. We're going to open our doors back up in January, but we have an online presence. We'll have our live presence where people can come and worship physically in person. But at the same time, the CDC is a nonprofit organization, 501c3. It's connected to the church because it's a religious organization, I should say, a Christian organization, but at the same time, it's separate from the church. But it's an organization where we give back to the community. We help to develop the community in whatever aspect that is. It's a broad term where, I mean, we could give money and we'll give money for scholarships to kids to go to college. We can help businesses, that particularly small businesses that are that have struggled and maybe have failed a little bit during this pandemic. So we can give money and support in areas like that. So it's a broad area in which, as we bring in money, we can give gifts away to help build up the community and help to restore the community.
Well, it's part of I mean, you're ministering to the very people that are call them parishioners or whatever you call
Right.
them, people that you're making an impact with. I mean, it's just part of the whole of ministering to them, their needs.
Yes.
I mean, you're
Yes.
doing the senior the center that you're
Mhm.
doing, the scholarships back, I'm sure are helping young kids and families that are going to your church and stuff. So
Yes.
good for you.
And even in the modular home factory that's going to employ, we'll have about 300 employees. We have a social aspect where we're going to build, because the modular home factory is going to sit on about 28 acres. So we don't need 28 acres. It's not going to be 28 acres big. So we'll have extra acreage to build other buildings to house and to employ people who are transitioning out of prison. We're going to train them to be, whether it's welders, whether it's electricians, whether it's carpenters, what we're doing in the factory, we're going to train them and employ them. That's one of the biggest things. And I know now from my own experience, the biggest things that causes the recidivism when it comes to the returning of former inmates back to prison is when you get out of prison, you don't have a support system. You don't have any money. The longer you stay in prison, the more you lose. So you don't have a support system. You don't have any money. You don't have a place to live. You don't have any transportation. And these are things that aren't necessarily provided. And so if we can provide that for them to give them some stability, then it's going to lessen the likelihood of them returning or doing something stupid to get some money and returning them back to prison. Man, it's I never knew the system, the judicial system, the political system. The system is the way it is. The easiest part, listen, it was easy. My experience, it was easy. Prison wasn't easy, but it was easy compared to coming out of prison. Being out of prison now is harder than it was being in prison because I'm still in prison. The system doesn't allow you to move forward. You pay your debt, whatever it was that you were convicted for, whatever they threw you in prison for. But when you come out, it's harder. I was mandated when I came out, Pete, to have 2 jobs. And they took 20% of my check after taxes from my first job and 100% of my second check, and did that for the first 21 months out of prison. How are you supposed to live?
You can't. No, you can't.
So it's hard. And in and through that experience, I want to put something, or I have put something together. We have put something together, my partners and I. The name of my CDC is Redemption Community Development Corporation, RCDC. And we put something together to help these guys and these girls coming out of prison, to help put them back on their feet. Because when one person goes to prison, it's not just one person that goes to prison, their whole family goes to prison.
Yeah. Irving, that's terrific. That's a tremendous story. And we're getting comments actually on Facebook Live about, redemption and way to go, and glad to hear it. It just, I hope you all the success in the world in your ministry. And if there's things Patriots alumni can do to help you with that, you got to let us know.
Well, I will. And I'm sure they'll be able to, the funding that we need to keep our alumni program here going in New England. Please don't hesitate to reach out if there's something that I can do, through that's community development, right?
Well, don't make that commitment lightly, because you will get called out.
No, I'm serious. Call me. We would love to help.
And Camden, New Jersey to Foxborough, Massachusetts, it's not that big a deal. So
no, it's not. No, not at all. Not at all.
As I was saying, if we can get back to what we're doing, and it certainly has an impact in the community, in a different form than what you're reaching kids. We have this camp program that we do, we call Football for You, where we bring 6 alumni out and we put kids through paces, kids that are 9 to 14 years old. And I tell you that we are in communities that really need this positive messaging. Let's just put it that way. And so we get 200 and 250 kids out there with hope in their eyes about sports and how sports might make an impact of what we're doing. Of course, we couldn't get in the field with this past year. We usually, we usually start in May and end at the end of July with this program. But I'm telling you, we're from Bangor, Maine to New Bedford, Massachusetts with this thing, and all points in between. We're in all 6 New England states with it, and we incorporate getting the alumni out on the field with them. Kids don't care if they're Tom Brady or Gronk or anything like that. They're not going to show up. But you put a Patriot logo on guys, and their parents tell them who we are, and we're out there trying to make an impact and making it work. So if you ever want to get out in the field with kids, I'd love to have you around them. That's for sure.
Oh, I love that, Pete. This before actually I had finished. I spent 3 years with my bishop working with him at his church, but then I needed to make more money. So I got another job up until the pandemic. And actually in the pandemic, they let me go because they shut down the school. But I was working. I was the chief operations officer at a quasi-military school. It's called the New Jersey Youth Challenge Program, where we bring in teenagers from the age of 16 to 18, male and females. We have about 125 kids who come in. They stay in a barracks for 6 months, and they're in danger of not graduating from high school. So they have, emotional, family, all kinds of issues. And we bring them in. They wear uniforms. They're on the military base. They march, they train. We teach them in the classroom, get them ready for the GED. In 6 months, they take the GED test. They pass it, they graduate, and we keep in contact with them to keep them connected and moving in the right direction. Whether they go into the military, whether they go into to the National Guard, or whether they go to Job Corps, whatever, we stay in contact with them to make sure they stay on track. We do 100 to 125 cadets twice a year, and I was the chief operations officer of that program for a year before pandemic set in and they closed the school. And they're going to open it back up, but they're not going to open it back up till July 2021. That's when I was kind of pushed into starting the CDC. And since the CDC started the beginning of this pandemic, or the middle of the pandemic, things have just taken off and gone just tremendously.
Well, I think in your case and in what we're trying to do up here, I think that there's going to reach a boiling point. I think people are so waiting to get back out and get involved in community and community service. Community is ready to happen. That we're gonna amp up as much as we can just to be ready to make this all happen. And I'll bet you're the same.
Well, yeah, and I tell my people, my congregants, because everybody's, you don't miss something until you have it, and then you don't have it anymore. Now you miss it. So everybody's ready to get back, and they're eager to get back out and get back to normal, so to speak. And I use the church as an example. People keep asking me, well, Pastor, when are we going to get back to church? When are you going to open the church back up? I can't wait to get back to the church. I said, well, okay, I understand that, but that might be one of the reasons God kicked us out of the church, because before the pandemic, you weren't in such of a hurry, or you didn't have that eagerness, or you didn't have that energy.
Granted.
Yes. You weren't saying that and acting like that before the pandemic. So now, because you can't come to the church, now you want to hurry up and you can't wait to get, no, you should have been like that before. That's how it should have been before. So now you miss it, and don't come back and start worshiping. And then 2 months later, you're back to business as usual. I don't see you anymore.
Right.
So I'm just saying, just like you're saying, people, yes, are eager to get back out and to be hands-on, but we should be like that anyway. We should be eager to be hands-on, to be helpful, to help these young people, to give of ourselves, whatever gifts we have, whatever abilities we have. We've been exposed to the limelight in the NFL. People are attracted to that. So we need to use that for good.
Yeah, no question. Irving, I smell dinner cooking behind me, so we're gonna have to.
That's not my dinner. Listen,
I do want I make a commitment to you, Irving Fryar, my friend. It's been a long time since we've been together, and I'll make a commitment right now in front of everybody that's watching. Is I want to stay connected with you and somehow be part of your life and have you part of what we're doing here with Patriots Alumni.
All right. Well, I kind of missed the last part you said, but I'm in. I'm all in with you. I make that same commitment. Now, in the Bible days, they would take an animal and they would kill the animal and they would cut. No, seriously. Here's how they made a cut. This is how they made a cut.
I read the story.
They kill the animal and they cut the pieces up and they lay it on the ground, and then they walk between the pieces of animal to seal the covenant. Meaning that if you break the covenant, what happened to that animal is going to happen to you.
Well, I'll make the commitment. We don't have to cut up animals to make it happen.
Animals. But I
Anyway.
I agree with you, Pete. That's wonderful, and I'm going to I'm going to make sure that I stay in touch with you, and we'll get involved in whatever it is you're doing when I can. And the same for you.
No question, no question.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys have have enjoyed watching us with Irving today, and just know that we're doing this every Thursday at 4:30. Now we've missed a couple. There's been some reasons that we've had to postpone. We've actually rescheduled Irving from a time before, but and now we've got next week Thursday is Christmas Eve, and we're certainly not going to interfere with people, family, and whatever you can do for Christmas Eve. And then the following Thursday is New Year's Eve. So we're going to pick this back up. Brian Holloway is our next early in January, and so we'll start making this happen on more. And now we're back in the 80s with all of this stuff. If any of you enjoy this enough that you want to consider sponsoring in the Huddle, please get a hold of me. You can contact me. Go to our website, patriotsalumni.com. There's ways of reaching me that way. And believe me when I tell you that I'll respond to any of your inquiries. Anyway, this episode of In the Huddle is brought to us by two great sponsors, Mark Cruz and family. Over the years, Mark has supported Patriots alumni training and advice, and along with his family has participated in all of our events and programs. Patriots alumni and its impact in the community does not exist without Mark Cruz. Thank you, Mark Cruz and family. And to Mayo Designs, a digital marketing team for business that believe in making the world a better place. As a partner, Carrie Mayo and her design team has certainly made Patriots alumni more successful in delivering its mission to the youth of New England. Again, I can't thank Irving Fryar to be with us. Again, stay tuned for more stars of the 80s as we progress with this whole thing. But Irving Fryar, I love you, man.
Love you too, Pete. Bless you, man. Have a great Christmas, all right, and a happy New Year.
I sure will. Happy
the best
New Year.
Is yet to come.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you too, Irving, to all of yours.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye.